everybody, we're at Huntington Beach State Park in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina once again, and today is March 10th, 2024, so it is the 3-in-1 day for Archer and Anna Hyatt Huntington. It was their birthdays and their anniversary, so we came here to see the little show that they got going on, had a guided tour. So if you're ready to watch it, we're ready to show it. We had a great time, so you ready?
Yes.
Let's go. That's because some of you might
I can maneuver with gloves on. See if I can do it. I did.
Thank you.
Take chocolate too.
Some really good punch there. And they had chocolate and vanilla cake. Chocolate.
You can email me and I can give you the information after. Public can interact or observe. And then there's another one that came from another place that we can't put out. We have one of our guys just built 2 shutters. If I put it right next to the shutters, you can't tell the difference. That's what he wants. So this was their bedroom, okay? I wasn't too impressed when I came in here. Multi-millionaire, I think they'd go a little bit bigger on the bedroom. But I was corrected. You see, they had plenty of room in here because Archer's 8-foot bed. What's a Murphy bed? Okay, attached down there, so you get up in the morning, the servants would make the bed, they would hinge it up against the wall, then strap it in, and then there's plenty of room, right? So if you read the sign, it talks about the ocean. Anna always loved the ocean. She always wanted to live on the ocean. And she'd spend hours just staring out, looking at colors change. I mean, she was an artist, right? And anybody see an ocean? If you were here in 1940, the ocean was 40 feet outside these windows. That birdhouse out there, that's well in the ocean. Okay? That's below low tide, actually. And there also were no trees here in the 1940s. So the trees are easy to explain. The horticulturists from Brook Green Gardens planted them to protect the house. Did a good job. The water, tough to explain. Now, Archer passed away in 1955 at age 85. Anna passed away in 1973. This frail lady that came down here because of tuberculosis lived to 98 years old. I'd say she beat the tuberculosis. So I said that because now I'm going to 1977. Okay, both of them have passed. Okay, the Army Corps of Engineers put 2 jetties on Murrells Inlet. Okay, what a jetty does is it stabilizes the inlet so boats can come and go. And it's an outcrop of rocks that goes way out into the ocean. Well, it's got another effect. As the currents come from the south, they're coming north, they're carrying sand with it. They hit that jetty, slow it down, it just drops the sand right there. We've gained 120 yards right here.
Wow.
Nobody complains about the width of our beaches. And When all the other neighborhood communities have to have their beaches refurbished after a big storm, we don't have to do that here. You see, we contracted Mother Nature, she's doing a fine job. Any questions?
The other beach you should do is put some jetties out.
Maybe just,
Polly's Island, I think, refurbished their beach, but then it caused trouble. Yeah.
that's definitely the way it goes.
Yeah.
And the sand you put at Polly's probably ends up here, so that's, go through her bathroom right here, check out the kitchen sink. She did not have a kitchen sink when she was here. What happened is, after Archer passed, Anna would never stay in this house alone without Archer. It would stay us together. So she, the place started to get ransacked, so she asked Mrs. Chandler, a longtime employee, to be a caretaker. Mrs. Chandler didn't have the funds that the Huntingtons had, so she just cordoned off this corner and lived in this corner, okay? There was no kitchen, so they converted Anna's bathroom into a kitchen. That's all that is. When you've done that, go to the next room on the right. That's going to be Miss Perkins' room. The neat thing about that is there's a room with just a bathtub in it. And then go to the foot of the stairs, and I'll be in the library. When you get down to the library, windows are so low enough to use it as a oriental seat. He was the architect for this job, okay? So there were no building codes, there were no building inspectors, there was none of that, okay? All decisions were made by Archer. So in most of the house, he did really good. He put foundations under all the walls, put footings down, and for a building that's almost 100 years old, brick structure with no expansion joints, it's doing fantastic, okay? All the walls are 3 bricks thick. So if you're counting bricks, make sure to count the ones in the middle. But down at this end, things were a little bit different. You see, the water was 40 feet outside the window. There was a seawall that ran right across here. And all the seawall is a pile of rocks, okay? Big rocks, but they're just sitting on the sand. There's no foundation, there's nothing. So Archer looked at that and he said, that's not going anyplace. Just build on top of it. Well, that was a mistake. Because if you take a rock and you put it in sand on the beach and it moves a little bit, it will go down, okay? So this has been 100 years, and those rocks underneath and that thing have all gone down. Well, what happens to everything above it? The floors go down. The lower part of this wall goes down. If we didn't concrete this wall, this doorway in, we would have lost this. But we do monitor these cracks. They are not presently moving, or I wouldn't be in here. So this was the library. Many times I get comments about, that's not very big for a library. But Archer had many libraries. One was the Spanish Society in New York City, which he founded. They had close to 500,000 books, okay? He didn't need that many books down here for the short times they were here. He'd keep poetry books in here and entertainment books. He encouraged his staff to read. He and Anna both read. It was the only entertainment, no television. And they say the internet didn't come in here. So he would keep books on research too. Now, why would a sculptor need to research? Suppose she was sculpting something from years earlier. Now, this came into effect before this house, actually. 1909, she was over in France, and she decided to do a sculpture of Joan of Arc, okay? Now, she researched it, and she found out that nobody had ever depicted Joan of Arc correctly. They had the wrong weaponry, they had the wrong armor, and nobody ever put her on a horse. So Anna fixed all these things. She did a life-size structure of Anna, and she entered in a contest called the Salon. And when the judges got to it, they thought it was fantastic. Everything was to scale, everything was proportionate. It was perfect. But came time to give a prize, they gave her an honorable mention. Why did they give her an honorable mention?
She's a woman.
More accurately, she wasn't a man. Okay? Same thing.
She wasn't French.
No, she wasn't a man, she was a woman. Well, I'm sure you're not surprised that, ladies, you didn't have the same rights you had in 1900 that you have today. She had no choice, she came back to the United States, and she dealt with it, okay? Within a year, this gentleman from New York City came to visit her. He happened to be in France when she did that sculpture. And he and his partners were celebrating the 500th birthday of Joan of Arc. So he contracted her to redo that sculpture. This time, she put it on steroids, okay? It just was huge. Anybody been through 82nd Street and Riverside Drive in New York City? If you go there, you'll see it today, okay? And you'll look up at it. When they unveiled that, the French sent their ambassador over to give Anna her award because they realized that they had messed up. Actually, we can go into this. I usually don't go. Okay. Enjoy.
This is where you have the Christmas, or the kids decorate this area for Christmas. At a school,
Yeah. As long as you enjoy it.
Oh,
If you don't enjoy it, you're gonna have to leave. So if this was a Moorish fortress, which he patterned everything after, this would be the front door. Okay, the ocean's right there, okay, and this is where they would enter. But the Huntingtons never used it as the front door. They always came in down the straight road, right into the garage. That's what they used it for. So they called it the sunroom, okay? The macaw was always kept here, okay? They traveled down with the macaw, 5 monkeys. The 5 monkeys were kept in the inside studio. And if Anna was sculpting, the baby monkey was climbing on her, okay? She loved that, okay? Any number of dogs that would come down with them pretty much had run of the place. They had handlers. But the courtyard would have been filled with peacocks and peahens. And there was an alligator that used to come into the house. Now, I said she loves animals. She loved all animals, okay? But I have her on tape, her voice. She said, "I don't like it when the alligator comes into the sculpting studio. Its tail knocks things over." Personally, I'd be more concerned with the other end.
What about the monkeys?
Anybody notice the difference in the floor?
Yeah.
Okay?
Why does it slope like that?
Well, it sloped like that because of the seawall.
Settling, okay.
Okay, but
Yes.
it's herringbone, okay? It was all straight over there.
Yes, yes.
See, if this was a Moorish fortress, the Moors, what they did was they got very fancy in a space that was a public space. That means that somebody other than the owner and the servants would go into it. And they would be in your face fancy, okay? It was marble, it was bright colors, it was just absolutely gorgeous. Well, Archer wanted to follow their suit, but he didn't want to go that fancy. So this is as fancy as Archer wanted to go. I'll explain why next stop. We're going to go out into the entry right inside. They would entertain up north, and they built this place mainly to get in the south, but also to work and to be left alone. That's what they liked to do. They would greet you right here. They would see you coming from about a mile because I'm looking down the straight road, okay? And when you got here, you could go for a spot of tea in the breakfast room or maybe a glass of wine on the back deck. The only consistent thing that happened every single time was when you were finished, you were expected to go home. No punches pulled, that's the way it was, okay?
Well, straight down is that gold sculpture, right?
Yes.
That's the center of Brooklyn Gardens.
That's aluminum. That structure is aluminum.
The gold one? Not the,
Oh,
not
the gold
horses.
inside.
Yeah,
Okay.
the gold.
Right here where I'm looking is
Uh-huh.
first okay.
Yeah,
So, this is 30 rooms. There is not a guest room. okay? This was intentional. This was intentional, okay? Sometimes I think they have the right idea. So, they would, there's no billiards room, there's no, none of the fancy rooms that you'd see in a big castle, right? Because Archer built this like it was his workspace, okay? I heard somebody call this the anti-Biltmore ones. They couldn't be more accurate, okay? The Vanderbilts built the Biltmore to be lavish and to show off and to entertain, okay? The Huntingtons built this place to come down here to work and to be left alone. And that's what they liked. So there was nothing on the walls. They didn't want to warm it up like a home, okay? There was no rugs. All the furniture was wrought iron. By the way, if you didn't like that, it's okay. You didn't live here. So we became a historic landmark, a list of historic places in 1984 and a historic landmark in 1992. And Brook Green Gardens shares this with us. Now, why do I say it like that? Brook Green Gardens owns this place. They don't own just the building, they own the entire park. Okay, in 1960, Anna leased 2,500 acres to the state to put in a state park. The state continues to pay a lease on this property. It's no longer $1 a year. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. And I guess I don't have to really talk about 3-in-1 Day today. Has everybody figured out 3-in-1 Day?
Oh, what is that?
Okay. See, their birthdays are the same. They're born on March 10th. What's today?
And their wedding
It's also their wedding anniversary. Archer said, that's our 3-in-1 Day. And I heard Archer never, ever forgot her birthday or their anniversary. So maybe he had a good idea there. And I don't know if you caught the little conversation I had on the way back, but the little girl with the birthday shirt was on my tour 2 years ago. Okay, and right here is when I found out that it was her birthday that day, and March 10th. And by the time I got to the dining room, I found out her name was Adelaide. And to run into her today was really special. I got goosebumps. So just so fantastic. Let's go into the dining room. Any questions in here? Okay, we'll go to the dining room. So this was the dining room, and they would take their meals in here. I told you there was nothing on the walls. These two rooms were the exception. In this room, you have tapestries that hung here, over here, and over there. But the tapestries you'd expect, because of their love of the arts, would be absolutely gorgeous, right? They weren't. What they were was functional, okay? You hear the echo in my voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Tapestries were there to take up the echo in voice. Now, I told you that all the furniture was wrought iron, and it designed all the furniture. The table that was right here is pictured up on the wall, one of Anna's pieces. And I told you the furniture, or it might not have, but in 1955 when Archer passed away, she shipped most of the furniture back up to Connecticut. That's where they were living by that time. Some of it went over to Brook Green Gardens, and some of it was gifted to longtime employees. This table was gifted to Mrs. Chandler, okay? Mrs. Chandler was the caretaker in the corner. And Mrs. Chandler was here in the early 2000s. And we set her up with a little table in the breakfast room, and she was having tea. And the docents that were here at the time, I was not, got to meet with her and find out how the place ran. And it was a pretty special day. But one of the guys asked her if she still had the table. And she was super proud when she said, yes, she did. Okay. Then he asked her, how much would you like for that? And she turned and sized him up and smiled and said, young man, You don't have enough money. That table is still being used today by Mrs. Chandler's granddaughter in Houston, Texas. Let's go into room 21. Yellow season has just begun.
Okay.
You're gonna put the windows, all the windows back or not?
We are. I figure we're going to finish about 12 years after I die. But we're getting there. So if you wanted to sit in a chair that was comfortable, didn't want to sit in that wrought iron furniture, this is the room you came into. This was the servants' living room. Okay? Now the servants went to Archer and they said, we've been working all day. We don't want to sit on wrought iron furniture. So what was Archer's response? He said, well, what would you like? And that's what he got him. So you could sit in upholstered furniture here and be very comfortable. But now there was a rule in this house. There always had to be a servant in this room. Okay? The reason is this is where the intercom was. Now I already told you Archer, or I told some of you that Archer hated the telephone. So how did he manage this? All Archer had to do in whatever room he was in was to push a button. Okay? Behind that door you can see evidence of cables that used to come down. Right behind the door there was a black box. In that box there was a buzzer and a series of lights. The lights corresponded to the rooms. So if you were the servant in this room and you heard the buzzer, you went and looked, you saw the light on for the library. You beat feet to the library to help the Huntingtons, whatever they needed, and he never had to pick up a phone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about servants and number of servants and such. I can't give you an exact number of servants that they had, but I can explain why and tell you what our best guess is. First of all, there's 11 rooms, 11 servants' rooms. So that's the easy part, right? There's 11 servants. But when they built this property, I told you that it was formerly a hunting lodge. The hunting lodge was right out in the courtyard, okay, when they built this. And the Huntingtons would stay in that hunting lodge while the place was being built around them. And they'd come down every winter. And once this house was finished enough, they moved into this house. They disassembled the hunting lodge. They reassembled it right outside these windows. It's not there, so don't bother looking. But to give you an idea of the size of it, one of our rangers lives in 1/3 of the house with his family. Okay? 2/3 of the family provide housing for 2 more families down in Georgetown. So all 3, it's still 3 houses now. And that would be used to house additional servants. How many, I don't know. I don't have figures on that. Also, anybody that handled the dogs, anything worked with the animals, there was a separate building on the south side that handled that. Now, I haven't talked yet about local people that slept in their own bed and came to work and then went home. When we put the numbers together, we figured between 30 and 40 people to keep 2 people happy in a home for partial of the year. We prefer to think and believe that the servants that lived close worked at Brook Green Gardens during the summer, and then here in winter. I don't have proof of that, but it just passes all the common sense and things. I know I probably shouldn't use common sense, but still do. Any questions on that? If you Google it, my name will not be there, a picture or anything but that. Let's go in the kitchen. You get to take a right-hand turn to be prepared for everybody. Servants for the Huntingtons, all the meals were prepared here. Anna had a rule. You probably have the same rule in your house. My cook is making 1 meal, and everybody's going to eat that meal. So if they're, no matter what, that's what they would eat. That'll come into play in a second. This is the kitchen. So the sink that you saw in the bathroom, this is where it came from. Okay, these stoves were right here. They were coal stoves. The refrigerator was right there. okay? The state-of-the-art refrigerator, liquid propane like you'd see in a camper today, but obviously not big enough to handle 30 or 40 people for a long period of time. They couldn't just run to Walmart and supplement what they had. So he had a backup plan. He always had a backup plan. He had a walk-in ice box. Now, when I say ice box, it ran on 300-pound blocks of ice. The ice was manufactured in Georgetown, brought up the river, down the straight road, around back here, block and tackle into the side of the building. Now, the ice box is right through these two pantries. Go in and check it out, but only go like 4 or 5 people at a time, because I don't want to turn you into sardines. Now, as you're looking at it, the woodwork on the outside would have been filled with ice. The whole bottom would have been solid ice. With the doors closed, that would have been the freezer. There are holes drilled in it just big enough to make the rest of the room the refrigerator. If you've ever been in a house that had an ice box, you could always tell where the ice box was, because the floor was rotted. They always leaked, and it always rotted out the floor. Here, we didn't have to worry about that. There's a hole in the side of the building, and it just went out through the side. I'll give each one of you a chance, and then I'll just keep my darker colors. They just weren't. So this meal this room is where the staff would have eaten their meal. It could also be, they would eat in shifts. It could also be an overflow for prepping in the kitchen. The cook's room was number 27 right here. That's her bedroom. She didn't have a long commute to work, so that made it real nice. And the window in the back is actually all original. The guys just redid that, and that's where all of the Huntington's meal would have gone out through there to be used. We're going to walk down the hall next. All the rooms on the left, on the courtyard side, are servants' rooms. Each one would have had a twin bed, a wardrobe, a desk, a chair, and a nightstand. And of course a fireplace, because how do you get to 22 fireplaces if they don't all have them? Some of those rooms are being used by us redoing the windows, so please excuse our mess. On the far side, on the outside, it's all storage rooms. They would receive shipments of equipment and food and everything else. So they need a lot of room to store stuff like that. The last two rooms on the right, on the end of the hall, are the men's room and ladies' room for the servants. How do you tell the difference between a men's room and a ladies' room in 1930? Real simple. Ladies, you took baths. Guys, you took showers. Okay? Wouldn't fly in my house today, but that's what the rule was back then. Laundry room's next after that.
I have a neighbor who I work with, she owned an ice company.
Oh, really?
No longer there.
Well, that's one of the things I did was I researched whether they could make ice in those days, and they could, because this was a big fishing area. Georgetown was huge, and they needed to provide ice for the fishing boats. So they did have that capability. So this was the laundry. Okay, I spend an awful lot of time here, and one of the comments I hear about the laundry room is everybody wishes they had a laundry room this big. So all I do is tell them, well, this laundry room comes with a big tub of soapy water and washwood, okay? And a big tub of clean water and manual wringer. And all of a sudden, their laundry rooms are just fine. Okay? After they ran it through the wringer, they would take it out and bring it into this courtyard right here and put it on the solar dryer. That was a clothesline that ran between this wall and the far wall on a pulley system, okay? Also in that room, is today's modern day bathrooms. That was the chauffeur's bedroom and the laundry man's bathroom. I did say laundry man, but Archer kept it even because his butler was a female. So, this room right here was Miss McKinnon's room, okay, Mrs. McKinnon's room. She was, basically, she had the nicest room in the house, okay? Not only because of all the windows and shutters have been replaced, but it's in a corner, it's got its own bathroom, so why'd she get such a special room? She was the boss of this house, okay? She was a head housekeeper, but she ran this place. She came down 2 weeks before the Huntington, and she hired the help for that year. With their help, she got the place all spiffed up. When the Huntingtons got here, everything was set. Likewise, at the end of the year, she spent 2 additional weeks. Cleaned it all up, got it all ready, locked all the windows, locked the doors. She had the key. Nobody came into this house till the following fall when she got back. Okay, Brook Green Gardens employees could take care of the property. Nobody came into the house. So, real quick story about Mrs. McKinney. Anna was sculpting in the studio one day, and an airplane landed on the beach. This wasn't normal. She had to go find out what's going on. She gets out there, Mrs. McKinnon is getting out of an airplane. It seems she wanted to do some shopping down in Georgetown. Well, there were no bridges at the time, so if she had to drive to Georgetown, she had to go all the way north, and then around, and all the way back down. It would take better part of a day, so she conned a local flyboy into giving her a ride, and she did her shopping. Now, Anna loved that. She loved it so much that she wrote a letter to her mother, and she said, "You tell those up-to-date Long Islanders they've got nothing on us." Check out the room, and then we'll go out into the courtyard and finish up out there. I've also met one guy. I was in Anna Arthur's bathroom, her bedroom, and this young girl kept nudging this older guy and saying, "Tell him." So I finally said, "What is it?" He says, "I used to sleep in this room, and I've showered in that shower." And I said, "Well, how did this become?" He was a lifeguard here in 1965, and that's where the park put him up.
I believe it.
It was great.
Our kids had, they used to do haunted stories.
Yes, we still do.
You still do?
We
Oh,
still
okay.
do. We
In the
do
summertime?
ghost stories here
You let them run through
Friday
here
nights.
with it pitch black?
We do not let them
That
run
was
through.
not a good idea.
We do not let them run through.
Yeah. Not run through, but
Rain-
walk through anyway.
Well,
Maybe
we
you
have
could.
them walk through.
There were
Ranger
lots of
Mike
people
leads and I
around
bring up
doors.
the back. Okay, so some things that we couldn't see from the inside. 2 sets of stairs that go up to the roof. Okay. Basically, I liken the rooftop to their living room. Okay. There was no living room for the Huntingtons, but they would like to sit out there and just look out at the ocean. Remember, it's only 40 feet from the house. Today, I didn't let anybody up there because there were no guardrails, no handrails. But you're not missing anything because first of all, you can't see the ocean anymore. And second of all it is a gravel rooftop. So you're not missing anything. There's also 2 basements. There's one in this corner here, and then one on the far corner. There are basements here because Archer's from the north. People in the north had basements. When he told the people down here he was putting basements in, they told him he was out of his mind. Okay? They said, "You know, you're right on the ocean, it's going to flood." So he did anyway, and if you go over there today, you'll see it's flooded. Okay, so they couldn't use it for a root cellar, they couldn't use it for a wine cellar, they couldn't even store coal down there. But what it was good for was the water heaters. There was a water heater under the kitchen and one under his bathroom. Okay, the water heaters were coal-fired water heaters, and of course it gets you water pressure from the water tank on top of the Atalaya. We keep that locked today too because it's usually flooded. And if it's not flooded, it don't smell so good anyway. There was also another purpose for the tower. Archer really wanted bats to live in that tower. He heard that there are a lot of bugs down here, and he said, if I have bats, the bats will eat the bugs. The problem is nobody told the bats. But like Archer always had a backup plan, he was only here in the winter. Anybody have a problem with bugs today? 19.
Bats did eat the bugs?
The bats never lived there.
Oh.
They never lived there. He wanted it, but it never did.
Oh.
We have some bats that live here now.
Yeah, okay.
And we don't point where they are, though. Today we use these courtyards for weddings. We discussed a couple big fairs and such. Wedding season starts on the 15th of March, so we're trying to gear up for that. And they'll do up to 3 weddings in a weekend. They have to bring absolutely everything in, but they've got it down to a system. They do it all the time. 1941, the Huntingtons gave up the house. They vacated it and they left it over to the Army Air Corps. The Army Air Corps came in. They put radar down on in the courtyard. They put machine guns up on the roof. They used all the rooms in this house and in those other buildings I told you about for barracks. And they patrolled these beaches. What they were looking for is German spies. The Germans were sending them in by having a U-boat way offshore, and they would let them off in a rubber raft. One person come in, and then they would spy from this country. We never caught anybody right on our 3.5 miles of beach. Many were caught on the East Coast, and the closest would have been just down at Harpcore Barony, just south of here before Georgetown. And they got their just desert, what was coming to them. Any questions? Anything I didn't touch on that you wanted me to?
I assume the covering of the brick was done after they left? And they just let it go, or?
The creeping fig ivy?
Yeah.
No, that was all original.
Oh, that
was
was
all
part of the
original
plan. Okay.
creeping fig ivy. That was one of the advantages.
That warms it up.
That was one of the advantages to the slump joint mortar, was that the creeping fig ivy attached nicely to it. And it is maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance to it. They don't do it with the hedge trimmers. They
No kidding.
take each piece. I mean, they have hedge clippers, but it's down to every piece. In fact, right there it's due. I can see the way it's coming up.
Yeah.
Anna also, I told you she had tuberculosis, so smoke in her lungs would be a real issue, right? So Archer saw to it that she didn't get smoke in her lungs. You'd have to walk around, but every one of the 22 fireplaces that had a chimney, every chimney that had a fireplace, I should say, has a device on the top of it. And it's got a sail on it, and when the wind blows, it turns that so it's with the wind. So as the wind goes through, it takes a draw out of the house. There's one actually in the gift shop. If you want to check that out in the back, it spins right around. But she never had to worry about getting smoke in her lungs. Thanks for coming today. Friends of Huntington Beach really appreciates it. And don't forget to get your cake.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the video for the 3-in-1 day at Huntington Beach State Park. As I said at the beginning of the video, the 3-in-1 day celebrates Archer's birthday, Anna's birthday, and it was also their wedding anniversary. So we walked in, and then we got in a group tour. That was really, really informative. I learned so much, so I wish that we would have got the tour at the beginning before we caught it back there in the bedroom, the master bedroom. And what was interesting to find out was that the ocean used to be only 40 feet away from the house, because now you got to walk a little pretty good distance to get to the ocean. So here it is, all these years I've been thinking that the path over there in front of the house is how they would walk to the beach. It was not. The beach was right there at the front door pretty much.
They went on just top of the building.
And they could look at the beach anytime they wanted
They
to.
could look at the
And
beach.
now I think you said you can't even see the beach from the top of the house. So truly enjoyed that tour. This was put on today by the Friends of Huntington Beach State Park, and they do wonderful things. I truly enjoy it.
It was good.
If I live closer, I might be a friend, but I live about an hour and a half away, so obviously I couldn't come anytime I wanted to, but
But we do come anytime.
we do come anytime we want to, but I couldn't come for volunteer purposes because, you know, of my job. They're not going to be like, oh, you can take off because you want to go volunteer at a beach. So, but they do a lot of things, and they're in there, you know, they're repairing a lot of the windows and shutters and stuff like that. And I just felt that it was a very informative tour.
It was.
I'm kind of glad we made it. It was from 1 to 4 today, so it's like 3:57 p.m. right now, so it's almost over with anyway. So I'm glad we called it, because we went on down to Hampton Plantation to get the azaleas, which that video will already be released by the time you watch this one. And then we came here. So I think it actually said on that board out front they got married March 10th, 1923. So today would have been their 100 years wedding anniversary. It's a long time. And he died
In 1955?
was it 58, something like that.
No, 55.
Something like that. He
I think that's what he said.
How old?
And she died in 1975.
Or something like that. She was 98 years old when she passed away. But he says she didn't want to come back because she didn't want to be here without Archer. So they obviously had a lovely bond. Must be nice to have a bond like that with somebody. I don't. But anyway. You know, some people can't live without their spouse or whatever, but I never got married, so I don't have that problem. But you know, what I love the most about this is Brook Green Gardens across the road, and this is my favorite state park. That is the number one, without a doubt, question answered. My favorite state park in South Carolina is Huntington Beach. And I also love Brook Green Gardens across the road, which we still got to get over there pretty soon to see the azaleas. But everything is running behind so far this year. It's not out there yet, because last year this time everything was already in complete full bloom. So maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to catch all the azaleas blooming after all. So anyway, I'm gonna quit rambling. That's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed.
And subscribe, please.
Yes, please do. So anyway, we'll see you somewhere else. So toodaloo.
Bye.
Bye. So as they say, hold the front door, we're not done yet. Mom wanted some ice cream from Spoonbills, which is their ice cream shop here. So she sent me upstairs. So she got the Charleston sea turtle tracks, and I got the banana pudding. How is it?
It's good. I'm gonna need to taste of that.
$4 a cone, you can't beat that. So I think it's pretty good. So anyway, I think we might be done now. So bye again.